Welcome back to the Krāv Show with your host Chris and JRuss. JRuss, how's it going, man? Good to see you.
Good. We need to just say that my bird is going to be part of the podcast because she's going to be part of the podcast.
Our mascot, our new mascot for the Krāv Show is. Hold on, you told me her name. Hold on,
Chickenhawk.
Chickenhawk.
Yeah,
Chickenhawk. Show her again. Hold her up here.
Because do you remember Chickenhawk from the Saturday cartoons? Like dance around next to the dog and be like, come on.
Yeah, the Looney Tunes Chickenhawk. Yeah.
Well, she's taken a liking to our little dog Mia, who's obviously she's not a killer, but by size comparison, she's huge. But now the bird will go land on Mia, and Mia just gives us this look like, what in the actual F? And
that's so cool.
So when that first appeared, like when she first landed on Mia, both me and Steph were like, oh, like the cartoon. So
that's awesome.
She's Chickenhawk. But anyway, she'll be providing plenty of background squawks. And if I set her up here, she does like to land on my shoulder. There'll be a little bit of poop there in a little while. We're going to get to what we were talking about, but are you a fan of Lord of the Rings?
Oh yeah, for sure.
Do you remember there was a wizard that was like Radagast or something like that, and he was like the guy that lived out in the forest?
Rabagast. What was his name? Yeah, I know who you're talking about. Yes.
Yeah, but he had the rabbits pulling his little sleigh.
Yeah,
and he had a bird's nest up on his head, and just a poop stain.
He
coming down
always
his
had
forehead.
bird poop on his head.
She likes to land on my head, and there's poop coming down on my head. She likes to bite. It's her favorite.
Dude,
thing.
one time we found some baby bats at my neighbor's house, and we figured out that they had fallen, kind of where they had fallen from, and so we really carefully got them and we put them in this little box, and we ended up putting them, like, we had a brick oven, like for pizza. A brick oven at that house that we lived at. And so we put them kind of inside the brick oven, not really inside, but right there in it, so they'd be safe and protected, but left it open because we saw the mom bat like kept coming around and actually had found them again.
Oh yeah.
And so she came over there. I left them alone, put them in there so they were safe, but then left them alone. And she came in there. I went back out later that night in the middle of the night, and she was in there with them. She had gone in there. And I think there was 3 of them. And one of them I could tell I was like, man, he might be hurt. I don't know if something's wrong with him. I was kind of worried about him. Well, the next morning I go out there, and the 2 that were okay, the 2 babies that were not hurt, were gone. She had somehow taken them and flown off. I don't know if she did it one at a time or what, but they were completely gone. And the one that was injured by that time, actually, it had died. I think it had just gotten so cold in the night because she wasn't there. But I couldn't believe it that she somehow figured out how to like pick them up and carry them off and take them back to wherever. It was crazy. It's cool.
Amazing moms.
Yeah.
Okay, so we were talking about Summerfest, and you said...
Oh, yeah, Summerfest. I was saying I had one very, very bad experience. And it was my own fault. I have nobody else to blame but myself. It was one of the nights when we were down at the Tiki or whatever it's called,
Uh-huh.
And I don't think you were there this night. I don't know where you were. It was when we were doing Battleship. You weren't there, were you?
Mm-mm.
Okay, so we were doing that. You know what I'm talking about? The Battleship with the water balloons and all that stuff, and water, and cold ice water. And so I was up on stage with, what was his name? He's so funny. Guy from England. Hilarious.
Free fly organizer? Jimmy?
Yeah, Jimmy. Yeah. So me and Jimmy were up on stage. He cracks me up. And then Anthony, one of the videographers, you remember Anthony?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. We had this huge bucket of water balloons. So Anthony, because we're on stage and we're like trying to crack jokes and make people laugh, we're just being stupid, Well, so then Anthony starts egging me on, and he's like, here, take one of these water balloons and throw it in the crowd. And I was like, no. He's like, come on, dude, do it. I'm going to video it. I was like, okay, whatever. So I chunk it. And the people that I throw, they just laugh and think it's hilarious. It's like, and then they get water balloons and throwing them back at us or whatever. And so that was just enough like positive reinforcement. I was like, oh, that's funny. And then Anthony kept egging me on. So every once in a while I'll just chunk a water balloon out into the audience. Mm-hmm. And I thought that it was funny, but obviously I'm an idiot. Well, so then after the whole thing was over, Anthony, he comes up to me. He's like, dude, and he said this girl's name. I'm sorry, I cannot remember her name. He's like, evidently one of the water balloons that I had thrown, I don't know if he said it was me. I don't know, but I threw a water balloon and she was eating a plate of nachos and the water balloon landed in the nachos and like, of course, broke and splattered and got cheese and water. And like, I mean, she's sitting there enjoying her nachos and all of a sudden, you know,
Yeah.
and dude, I felt so terrible. I was like, oh my gosh, where is she? I've got to apologize. I mean, should I go apologize? And he's like, no, I think she's okay. I was like, no, I have to apologize. Like, I can't. I was like, who is it? Take me over there. So he takes me over there and she was not having an apology at all. I mean, she laid into me and let me have it. Rightly so. I mean, I deserved it. But man, it made me feel just about that big, you know, walked away with tail between my legs. Oh, I felt so terrible. It's horrible.
Well,
so that was my bad Summerfest experience.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I mean, the tiki is the tiki. Sometimes wild stuff happens.
Yeah.
That's why people like it, but not her.
No, I shouldn't have been doing that. What I should have done is I should have told Anthony to take all those water balloons out into the crowd and let them throw them at us on the stage. That's what I should have done. Yeah. That would have been funny.
Less victim and more just fun.
Yeah, more laughter.
All right. Well, things obviously we don't have a guest this week, but I was curious. Did we have a cast where I talked about the Hall of Fame dinner?
No, I don't think so.
Okay. Well, Cookie Composites, the helmet manufacturer. There's a guy that works for them named Nick, and actually two Nicks, and they're our helmet sponsor. And they got in touch with us and said that during Nationals, the Saturday night of Nationals, that the Hall of Fame dinner was going to happen in the city, and they had a couple extra places at the table. And did Steph and I want to maybe join? Ended up that they had a third seat that our teammate Colin was able to go, and it was right after the podcast with Cheryl Stearns that we had during Nationals. Did that get uploaded correctly?
That one that has not been published yet.
Okay.
I'm having some issues with some of the videos, so I'm trying to get it, but okay. I think it's going to work. Hopefully, we'll see.
Well, we went up to the dinner, and Norman Kent was inducted. There were a couple of people, and I'd have to have the book because some of the people I didn't recognize, but Norman Kent was inducted, and also Olav Zipser. Do you know that name?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I've never met him. I mean, I don't know him, but he's still around, isn't he?
Yeah. Yeah. He's a little bit older than me. I don't know, maybe 10
Does he still jump?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
He does?
Yeah. I don't know where he's based right at this moment. But man, it was like they inducted a couple people who, like one woman who had been dead for a couple hundred years, and she was like she was the third woman to ever parachute from a balloon, and she made the parachutes, and she actually came up with a better design. They were still rounds, but she redesigned it to be much safer, and like she was like the inventor of the modern Pro Pack because she knew that, hey, if I fold this a different way, it's going to open way better. And it was adopted by the military. Anyway, there was a Golden Knight that was inducted. And I'd say about half the people were deceased and about half the people were alive. Out of, I think 6 were inducted. But it was a really cool experience. And just to, kind of connect the past and the future and the present and all the stuff that happens with that happened so long ago, and that it's cool that somebody recognizes all that stuff. It's cool.
Yeah, that's very cool. Is she asleep on your shoulder, the bird?
It's possible.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
That's really cool.
Yeah.
That's really cool. Where does she sleep? Does she have like you made her in a little nest or what?
Well, we were, when we were in Chicago, she was just in a dog carrier.
Mm-hmm.
Which was actually the dog carrier was bigger than we actually got an actual bird cage now, but she likes to be in a nesty kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
So we had her in our second bathroom. Freaking disaster in there. So Steph got this bird cage from her mom because her mom likes to have birds and she had an extra. And she made this like cocoony nest with a towel. And so we put her up in there and she like settles in,
snuggles down in there,
sticks her little head out, and we turn the lights out and she goes to sleep.
Dude, that's
and we start making coffee, the lights coming in. We don't turn any lights on, but it's coming from the outside. When the first chirp happens, you can almost guarantee like we're gonna go get her out. She's gonna take a quick flight and she's gonna take a massive dump on your shoulder. Almost guaranteed.
Dude, that's awesome.
But she's a cutie.
Do you put a towel on your shoulder beforehand so you don't have to wash your shirt?
I mean, I only wear it for one day anyway. And if I look like a homeless person, who really cares? I mean, Steph understands the reason. I'm not trying to impress anybody else.
Like, JRuss, don't kiss me. You smell like bird poop.
Yeah. Well, not my mouth. I haven't gone that far yet, but it's amazing that you do get pretty comfortable with that right away. I imagine it's like a parent when you have kids and just the poop and dealing with diapers and all that. That to me seems way out there, but I'm sure I like the. Although, do you know Ridiculousness? Do you know that TV show?
No.
It's a skater dude, Rob, who he's always got. It's like when you have a podcast and I'm a constant host. He has a TV show with two other constant hosts, and then they'll have guests, and then they just pull internet videos that are funny.
Oh yeah, you're talking about Rob. Yeah, I know what you're talking about. Yeah,
Rob Dyrdek.
Yeah.
And they're hilarious. But he had a dedication to like fathers who were just not ready for diapers, and like they pull the diaper off and it's and they're vomiting and just going crazy and they just can't hold it together. It was super funny.
That's funny.
Maybe you don't get used to it as quick as I think.
Well, no, like for your own kids, that's kind of, I mean, that's how I was. I thought it was so disgusting and nasty, but then when it's your own kids, it's like, you just deal with it, But even nowadays, when I see other kids with nasty diapers, I'm like, oh gosh, that's disgusting. But if it's your own kids, it's like, no big deal. I don't know. It's weird.
Well, she feels like my kid because if she shits on my shoulder right now, I don't care that much. It's fine. I like when I'm playing, my left hand is on the keyboard when I'm playing Dota.
Yeah. And
my right hand is on the mouse, and I'm using a lot of hotkeys, and my mouse has 12 different hotkeys, and I obviously the right and left clickers, but then there's actual 12 buttons that I use and a scrolling wheel, and it's an intense game. And she's going back and forth between my hands and pooping on my hands. I'm like, the mouse pad's got to stay clean.
She's pooping on your hands?
Now. Yeah, well, sometimes. But the thing she's doing now is like this hand is on the couple different keys, and she climbs in like my hand is the little nest, and then just sticks her head out and barks at me. It's great. It's great. Our dog is, to be honest, a little bit jealous.
Dude, that's so awesome. That's very cool.
I don't know how long sparrows live, but it's going to be funny as long as she's with us.
Yeah, I love it. Hey, so one of the things I did want to talk about, we talked on the phone the other day, and it was really helpful to me. And then one of my friends on Instagram, he said something. He's like, hey, you and JRuss, y'all should talk about this because we would like to hear other people's perspective. But he was specifically saying about voting, like the USPA and voting and all the different stuff like that. And, I don't remember exactly how he phrased it in his text, what he was asking me, but that was like, I was like, oh yeah, that actually is, maybe that would be helpful. Just what would you want? What do you want to share with people? What would you want jumpers to know? Because, every year that comes around the voting, I get an email, I see stuff online, and I usually, I did it this year. I've done it for the past few years. I take time to go in, and I do take a minute to vote. But unless I specifically know one of the people, I don't really know what I'm voting for. I don't know really what they're doing. Like it's nice because over the past year or so, I've gotten to know Melissa Nelson just a tiny bit. So, I can feel confident in knowing her and what she's trying to do. I've gotten to know Jeannie Bartholomew a little bit. But outside of, just a few people that I've connected with, I just don't even know. And I honestly don't even know a lot of those positions in the USPA, specifically what they're doing. So I don't know. Is that something you would want to just kind of share your thoughts or?
Well, sure. As long as there's a caveat of, I think I've been to 2 meetings. I didn't find the process particularly satisfying. And
Wait,
obviously,
what process? What do you mean?
yeah, we'll get to that. But but I think that I have to say in advance as well, voting is a personal thing, and people are going to disagree with what I have to say for sure. And I guess what I try to, if people ask me personally about voting, which admittedly is not very common, but if they do, I want to try, just like voting for a president or voting for a congressman or congresswoman or whatever, that I would like to avoid conflicts of interest as much as that's possible in anybody that's going to act on my behalf. And if people get elected to the board for USPA, cool. I think that their constituents are the members of the skydiving community and not one particular place, not one particular business. And that's admittedly a slippery slope. And so, like, I know for a fact Rook will not be bothered if he ever hears me say, I don't think Rook should be on the board of directors. He owns a drop zone. It is impossible for him to divest himself from his own business, voting in his own self-interest. There's just no way. That's asking too much of a human being. And so I don't think he should be on the ballot. And so, you can make that extension as you like, as far as the people that are on the ballot. I definitely, I feel like I'm echoing the sentiment of a lot of people that there has been sort of a voting block that votes the way that one particular drop zone owner who's on the board wants things to go. And so he basically has 3 votes instead of just the one that he should have by his elected status, but the other 2 vote in lockstep with him. One's his son and one's a longtime employee. And I think that is a travesty for the USPA. He's part of the history of skydiving, so it's very difficult to totally say that. Like, he's done a ton of great things for the sport, but the part of the process that I was involved in, he could not separate himself from his own business, and that affected me personally in that particular encounter. The way, I mean, it ended up that they did vote in our favor, but the clear, I don't know what the right word is. Corruption is probably too heavy, but like
bias,
the conflict,
maybe.
Yeah, the bias, the conflict. It was so. I mean, if I told the whole story, which I don't necessarily need to, it was a laugh. Like, you are your business, and you can't separate yourself from it. You certainly can't give me a vote on the merits of my argument. The reason why my argument was accepted was because he called our main competitor and confirmed with her that it was okay for us to have what we wanted, and then he voted in our favor. But that should not have been my process. And it just confirmed to me that it shouldn't be like this. Sorry about that. So beyond that, I voted for 8 people. Some of them I know personally, and it's like, not that everybody needs to know how I voted, but I did vote for Melissa. And this is the slippery slope that I'm talking about. She's Rook's sister. She's closely associated with Skydive Chicago, but she's not an owner, whether people know that or not. I think they do. Just gave me a little present.
There you go.
She's not one of the owners.
Put that on your toast.
I think that she can vote her conscience. I mean, she's a strong, independent woman. I think she's going to vote her conscience no matter what.
Yeah.
But she doesn't have the same conflict, in my opinion, Sorry, I think it's dinner time. That other people have. So
Yeah.
anybody need to see nature at work? She's hungry. Do you hear that ramp up of the chirping though?
No, I couldn't tell.
Oh,
Did he
really?
get,
Yeah.
Did he get more? Like more aggressive kind of, or louder or something?
Yeah. Way louder. So she gets 2 worms maximum at a time because after that, she just starts playing with them. She doesn't really eat them. And she's right in front of the mic having a worm.
Oh, she's got a mealworm in her mouth. That's cool. Yeah. Oh, look at that. She just downed it.
And now she'll chill out a little bit.
That's cool.
Well, hold on.
Are those mealworms alive? Are they like wiggling around?
Want to drink water? Yep, there we go. One more? Nope, that's it.
Dude, that's cool.
Yeah, they're alive.
Does she ever take a bath?
Yeah, totally. It's a mess.
That's awesome, dude.
Yeah, this is her little water bowl, and she'll empty it and just she'll look like a drowned rat when she's done.
And she'll just splash water everywhere, just like throw it around?
Yeah.
That's so cool. You should video and put it on Instagram or something, or well, you don't do Instagram. Let Steph do it.
Yeah. Steph's done a
little bit. Do you know what
stuff.
Instagram is, JRuss?
I do.
Instagram? Can you say that?
TikTok. You know what's funny is there was an alien sighting or UFO. And maybe you've heard about this one, but it's called the Tic Tac UFO.
Mm-hmm. No.
Because it was roughly shaped like a Tic Tac, kind of oval shaped.
Okay.
And it I'm going to get this a little bit wrong, but it traversed the space of 60,000 feet to the surface of the ocean in like 1 second.
Wait, was this recently?
A couple of years ago.
Wait, it did what now? It what?
It was spotted about 60,000, hovering about 60,000 feet, and it was at the surface. They could track it through some kind of signature. I don't think it was heat, but it traveled 60,000 feet in about a second or two, like an acceleration that would liquefy a human being. And it paused briefly at the surface of the ocean and then went underneath.
What?
Yeah, but it was the Tic Tac UFO because of the shape of it. And when people started saying TikTok, I was like, are you talking about that fucking UFO? Is that what we're talking about? No, man, it's an app on your phone. Oh, all right.
You're an idiot. It's Tic Tac, dummy.
Yeah. Steph has posted a few videos. She was a little bit concerned to post them because most states have laws in place against having wild animals as pets. And I don't know if it's just a common house sparrow. So if somebody out there is going to prove me wrong, you can help me not get arrested, I guess, or fined. But I think they're invasive, and it's the most common bird in every state of America. And in Illinois, Colorado, and Arizona, you can have one if you want.
Huh. Well, that's not your pet. That's not your pet. It just lives in your house. You can't control it. No, I'm just
Yeah. I mean, it's not a Bengal tiger or anything, it's a
surely nobody's going to care that you have a sparrow that you're taking care of, that you saved. I'm so sure.
Man, somebody's going to be offended for sure. You shouldn't.
Dude, so ridiculous. Yeah.
But for the backstory, I don't know. I probably told the backstory. She almost got stepped on by the grounds guy, and I was like, oh, that's it. I got to pick her up.
Yeah.
And then I have done this once before where it fell out of the nest. I don't remember if it's a he or she. I fed it for a while, opened the door, she flew away. But it was more mature than she was, and no damage at all. It just fell out of the nest. Mm-hmm. And it was kind of half flying all across the ground when I got it, but she was clearly broken. Mm-hmm. So anyway, that's my consolation to anybody out there who's going to be upset about me having a bird. I kind of look like Captain Hook. I need a parrot. Is it Captain Hook? Had the big parrot stand on his shoulder?
Sure, why not? So with the voting, anything else that you would want to say or that you think is important to think about? I mean, that makes sense when you say it, but I honestly had never, until you said that to me on the phone the other day, I'd never thought about that. Like, oh yeah, maybe somebody who has a business or runs a drop zone, maybe they shouldn't be in charge of making decisions for how things work and operate, because they could potentially be making, decisions just for themselves that actually helps them in their business, but doesn't actually help the skydiving community. Right. I mean, isn't that That's the
That about
concern.
sums it up. Yeah.
Yeah,
Ironically, I
sense.
think like a former drop zone owner would be a great person to be on the board.
Yeah.
Intimately familiar with the functioning and needs of, a drop zone. What do we need from USPA? What do our customers need? Blah, blah, blah. But again, somebody who's active, they just can't, I don't think they can separate themselves.
Hmm.
I'm sure somebody can argue against that if they so choose that, and they can vote that way. After that, like I said, there were 8 people that I was allowed to vote for national director. And I knew most of them personally. The ones that I don't, I do what everybody else did, and I read the bios. And this one's kind of an easy one to pick on because it was funny to me when I read it. But I think at the last election, or maybe 2 elections ago, there was a guy who in his own bio said something like, I don't want to spend USPA money to allow transgender people to use bathrooms or something like that. And I was just like, oh, buddy, I'm sorry, I can't vote for you. Like, we got bigger fish to fry than bringing that stuff into our debates. And it especially because I really consider skydiving to be a wildly inclusive community. Like, I'm sure that there's, racism and bigotry in our community as there is everywhere else in the world because it's made up of people. But I think we're a pretty good subset of humans as far as being tolerant of each other sometimes. So anyway, I just read the bios, and if I'm not sure, and sounds like somebody I'd like to be making those decisions.
Do you know much about like the different positions? Because like one of them, I think we get to vote on the board, right? And then we get to vote on do they call it president? Not president. What do they call it?
Well, there's national directors, which is the eight people.
Okay, but then we also get to vote on the regional for our region, right? Like I only get to vote for my region,
right?
And so on my region, there was only one person. It's been the same guy. It's
mine too.
Who is your region?
Ray Lalo.
Ray Lalo. I don't know Ray. Okay, mine is Chuck Akers. Do you know Chuck?
I know Chuck. I don't even know Ray, the guy that's in my region.
Oh, okay.
I met him. But I don't jump in my region, so it's not surprising.
I don't think I've ever met Chuck in person. But
really?
I'm sorry?
Sorry, go ahead. Yeah.
No, I don't think I've ever met him in person, but my experience with him online, because I see him pretty often on Facebook, like interacting on a lot of these like fun jumper pages, and a lot of them are like newer, younger jumpers, people asking questions. And it seems like he's always right there, ready to answer people's questions, ready to encourage. Like somebody will post a video like, oh, here's my cat, whatever, they're going through AFF and this is my cat 5, or I don't know what it's called, but, and he's always interacting and encouraging people and saying cool. So I don't know, at least from online, he seems like a very, very nice, very good man. But I've never met him. So
yeah, I've met him a bunch of times. I mean, I've known him for a while. I only met him once, and then we see each other. But he was, he was at the Hall of Fame thing.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, so I chatted to him for a few minutes at the bar before we went in, and his son, I'm pretty sure I'm saying this correctly, that his son is Justin Price, who Justin is part of the PD factory team as a competitive swooper, and he works for Flight One. And at least in my experience, Justin's also a really great dude. Chuck's a great dude. And my experience with Chuck has also been really positive. It's good dude.
Yeah. He seems very cool. Very fun.
Yeah.
Supportive.
So was the voting thing, like you had said you had a topic because we didn't have a guest? Was that the thing?
No, I mean, that was one idea. No, other topics, I didn't have like anything major. One of them was just something I had been thinking about a long time ago. I had gone back and looked through some notes and stuff I'd written down, but one of them was just this idea of progression, not perfection. And just that kind of that mindset and that idea of, because sometimes I'll get down on myself because I want to be perfect. I want to do everything right all the time, And for one, that's just impossible. I mean, I'm not going to do it, but just kind of focusing on progression. Am I doing better today than I did yesterday? Am I doing better this week than I did last? Do I know more about canopy piloting, or do I know more about, flying safely in the holding area, whatever it is, just trying to make sure that I'm progressing in everything. So that was one of the things that I had thought about.
Well, yeah. I mean, that's a great. Hold on, I'm just going to ask Steph to turn the TV off. It's making flickering right behind me. Perfection versus progression. So a couple thoughts came to mind when you said that. I have jokingly told teams that I work with in the past, and sometimes individuals, hey, if you find perfect out there somewhere, let me know where it is, because I've been looking for a long time, but it doesn't exist in my mind. So progression is thanks, honey. Progression is a much better way, I think, to look at it. That and some people jokingly, I think it's a very common thing for people to say, hey, I suck less today than I did yesterday. And that's sort of a, other end of the spectrum as far as School of Hard Knocks and everybody gets a gold star, those two disciplines. But whatever, progression is, in my opinion, a much better way to think about it. Just try and be better every day. And the other thing that came to mind, sadly for me, is that as a 53-year-old trying to stay very fit, if you think of, the ability to progress as a bell curve, I think I'm past the center.
And I don't know if I want to think about this, JRuss.
Yeah. But my teammates are very happy to point out that they did way more progressing last year than I did. And that's totally true. And I don't think I got worse. I mean, that's a hard thing to say, but
wait, does that mean they started lower?
Yeah, for sure. They had more potential room to grow. Like my ability is not limited, but I've got smaller margins. So I think that is a great way to look at it. And for anybody, aspiring teams or younger jumpers or older jumpers, progress is hopefully the way you look at it, and something that people aspire to. I really find it interesting. I've had this conversation a bunch of times with people about what I think competition does for you. And it might've been Cheryl. We had somebody on, maybe it was Lindsay, somebody who was competing, and echoed a sentiment that I have of like, when you start competing and like if you do MFS or FS or VFS or canopy piloting, whatever it is, you immediately start to understand your deficiency in the sport and the areas that you need to improve, because you're trying to be better every day. And part of that process is figuring out the things that you need to improve. And most of the time, those are readily apparent as soon as you start in the competitive realm, which to me, and I'm a very competitive person, full disclosure there. Like that seems like the way to go. Like if you want to be better every day, man, hop into competition and cool, you're going to figure it out really quickly. And quoting Dante, long is the road that out of darkness leads up to light, or something like that, but, and it is long and it is hard, but it's totally worthwhile in my opinion, because when your skill set, when you're done with that pathway, is so much different than where you started. And zoo dives are no longer acceptable. Like, it's not that I can't go out and have fun or just have a fun jump, but I want to be progressing. And I think the sport generally would be safer, maybe, if more people got into competition, or more people looked at it in that way of progress.
Yeah. I just had a conversation. So I went to, did we talk about because I went to the VWR, I mean, the vertical world record, camp. The phase 1 camp with Alethea a couple weekends ago. We didn't talk about it yet, did we?
You mentioned it, but I don't know if we did it on air. And for sure, we need to talk about it more, because I was really curious.
I don't think we talked about it really.
Yeah.
Anyways, when I was in Houston, it was between jumps. We were hanging out, had some downtime, and there was a guy there. We started talking. Older guy. I know him from space from San Marcos. He organizes that over there sometimes and does a lot of belly stuff. And he said something to me about. He's like, "Oh, when are you going to?" Because Nationals had already finished, but Worlds was coming up, I think, the next week. And he said, "Oh, when do y'all compete? Are y'all going to Worlds or whatever?" And I was like, "Oh no, I don't." I think maybe he thought I was somebody else or something. I was like, "No, I don't really compete, you know." And so then we started talking about that, and so it's really interesting to hear you say all that, because what I want to say, and I really want to hear your thoughts and feedback. I'm very competitive. Like, I like to win and I like to compete. But I've also realized about myself, like as I've gotten older and older, I've realized that when I let myself really compete at something, whatever it is, even if it's just ping pong or whatever, like it's going to change my attitude about that activity.
Hmm.
And so I've felt myself, and I told this to this guy because he said something about competing. I was like, yeah, I really don't want to compete at skydiving because I don't want to have that feeling towards skydiving. Does that make sense? Like, I don't want, I'm worried that if I get into competitive skydiving, that it will take away some of the enjoyment because I'll be overly focused on winning. And I won't get to enjoy skydiving the way that I do right now. Does that make sense?
Totally.
And what are your thoughts on that? And please argue if you want to. Like I I mean, that's the whole point of a lot of our conversations, is that we like to argue with one another.
Well, again, something that I've expressed to people in the past that I think is totally true. And when I speak to other competitors or maybe high level competitors, I think I get very good agreement that if you were to start to compete, again, the road's long to get to where you want to be. If everything comes true, all of your dreams are successful, and you stand on the podium, cool, you get to wave the flag. That's 5 minutes of your life. And so what you really need to do is make sure that you're enjoying the process. You're enjoying your teammates. You're enjoying the jumps that you're doing, the discipline that you're doing, the amount of time you're spending, the balance with your life or your wife or your kids or whatever. You have to be enjoying that part, because that is 99.9% of what you're going to be doing as a competitor. The podium is, you know, the word ancillary. It's an ancillary benefit.
Yeah.
It is associated with what you're doing, but that's not really the goal. And my teammate Andy, my new teammate, kind of said it really well. He's like, man, I want to get better. I want to be absolutely as good as I can be. And if at the end of that I stand on the podium, cool, man, that's great. But I want to have fun doing what I'm doing, and I want to be fucking good. And
Okay.
I wholeheartedly agree with that. And I also, man, Chris, I want to win. But obviously you've got to be okay with the fact that sometimes you don't. And that is also part of the process. But I think you got to approach it with the right mindset of that. But again, it is the best way to progress in my mind. Brings your focus to that moment. All the things that we love about skydiving, in my opinion, are sharper in competition. And a little bit ironically, sorry, go ahead.
No, that's very interesting hearing you phrase it in that way. And that's really not a drastically different way to phrase it, but it is nuanced. And hearing you phrase it in that way, that that sounds more appealing. I'm not going to say, oh, tomorrow I'm going out, I'm going to, join a competitive team or something, but that definitely sounds way more appealing. Like hearing you say that, and what you said your teammate said, like, yeah, if we win, great, but I want to enjoy the process. That sounds much better, because I don't know that I've, grown up playing tennis and playing soccer, playing whatever different things I've done. I don't know that was always I do know that was not my attitude. Like, enjoy the process was not my attitude.
Yeah. I mean, I did similar things in high school, and I think, I've been competing my whole life, and tennis, wrestling, football, swimming, badminton, hockey. I mean, you name it, I wanted to do it. But I think it was the skydiving teams that, for sure, maturing as a human being and maturing as a competitor kind of went hand in hand, or continue to go hand in hand. It's not as if the process has stopped. I'm still involved in it, in both in being a human being and a competitor. But I think that in a lot of ways, I mean, for sure, it's helped me in skydiving. For sure, it has progressed my skill set. But being part of a team and dealing with those relationships, you're gonna hopefully be a better human being in that process as well.
Well, and is it accurate to say that competing has opened up a lot of doors for you? Is that fair?
Yeah, for sure. But I mean, it's hard to split that up from success. Like if you're winning, a lot of people want to be sort of in your sphere. It's easier to, if you start winning, it's easier to talk to sponsors. It's easier to get support. It's easier to talk to a drop zone. It's not necessary. Like for instance, Lindsay and Joey's team, they weren't winning, and they're still not winning. As far as like placing first in a competition, but their training, their skill sets are exploding. They're a more active part of the community. They are hosting events at the drop zone. They're bringing new jumpers, and so in some ways, yes, competing in itself can be. Sorry, what you said. There are more opportunities, but they kind of created that for themselves. It isn't like, no drop zone is just going to say, oh, hey, you look like a nice guy. Do you want to be sponsored? You're gonna put in a bunch of money and a bunch of time and a bunch of effort, and then you're going to get to a place where maybe you can add value to bring those opportunities to you. But it's who was it? Henry Ford that said, yeah, the early, what did he say? Like, good things come to those who wait, but only what's left behind by those who hustle, or something like that. Which is kind of an interesting play on that old expression. But it's going to be, those opportunities, you're creating them for yourself.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then that was a multi-pronged question there. I can't remember the other part. I'll remember later. We'll talk about it off air. But yeah, the last thing that I was going to add is that if you personally or anybody else listening do decide to go forward with a competitive team, when you think of your teammates, choose wisely, because you are going to have a relationship with those people. And that scene in The Matrix when I think it's the second one, when there's like the Asian guy who's protecting the Oracle, and Neo and the
his
Asian
name
guy,
is
Seraph, yeah, and they fight,
and
he
says, you don't truly know someone until you fight them.
Yeah, you don't know someone until you're on a team with them, and then sometimes you still don't. But you do the best you can. The thing is, like, everybody does. Like, we've always done the best that we can in picking teammates, and sometimes it's worked, and sometimes it's been an epic fail. But that's just part of the process. And some belly competitor I was talking to recently said, the hardest thing about having a team is having a team, and it's very true. It's just it's a relationship with however many other people are on that team, and you're gonna go through some ups and downs.
Man, even just coaching, because that I coach the soccer at my kids' school, the high school. I'm the assistant soccer coach, and man,
interesting stuff.
You get to know, you see. I don't know. You see it's almost like a real side of people comes out in competition. Like that's who they. And I'm the same way. I can be a total jerk when it comes to competing. I can be terrible because I want to win so bad, But you do see that.
Man, I agree that sometimes it's not nice things that come out of people when they're competitive, and certainly that has been true of me at times in the past. Not my best behavior, but also I think, number one, I think sports competition brings people together.
Mm.
I truly agree with that, even though there are, I mean, our community is made up of people, and people are crazy different. And, you know, some of the people that I've met in the sport have been absolutely amazing and uplifting and supportive in the same time that they're being competitive. And I want to be like those people if I can.
Yeah.
And there's other people who have been arrogant and dismissive, and I want to not be like that. But you're going to get all kinds, and that's why, you know, if you do decide to sort of hold hands with these people in the sky, however that's going to be, try to choose wisely.
Yeah. All right. Can we switch subjects? Because I really want to.
Yeah.
I'm very interested to hear about Mexico. Do you want to?
Oh,
Are you cool sharing about that?
For
It's
sure.
so interesting to me. I want to know more about
so
it.
I don't think like sometimes keeping people out of the public eye is good, but I think this guy's going to be okay with it. I mean, I heard about this place called Cellular Performance Institute on Joe Rogan. Was where I first heard it, and I heard about it because a bunch of his jiu-jitsu buddies were going down there to get stem cell injections for messed up bodies. I mean, I've only done a tiny bit of jiu-jitsu, but it was really hard. And you know, you're applying forces on people's bodies, and they're applying on yours that are intended to hurt. And you know,
yeah, like you're trying to jack someone up.
Yeah, and I mean, I think it's way better. It's maybe less destructive than boxing, which I've also done a little bit of, but like being hit in the head over and over again is like just generally not good. But anyway, so a bunch of guys going down there, and he mentioned it on the show a couple of times. I don't know if he has like a relationship with them as far as them giving him money to say their name, but then a friend of mine in skydiving, his name is Skip. He went there, and I think he is a jiu-jitsu guy. He's jacked, and he lives in San Diego, so it was just hopping over the border for him. And I probably won't get everything right, but he had issues that were so bad in his neck that if he jumped one day, he was physically knocked down for about a week, like of limited ability to use his body after that for a week.
Just
and if he did
for
2
one
days,
day of jumping?
Yeah. And I mean, I don't know how many jumps, but I mean, he's a younger guy he's probably 35, 38, something. Dude. 38 at the most. He's a young guy. So, and I mean, if you look at him, he looks like the frickin' mountain from Game of Thrones. Like, he's not that tall, but he's just jacked. Fit, he's a really fit looking dude. Yeah. And, you know, because I bartended at Summerfest for the past decade, he'll, you know, I've had a couple cocktails. His shirt's coming off. He looks like the mountain, like he's ripped. Yeah. And his knees were both messed up. His shoulders were both messed up, but his neck was what was causing him real trouble. So he went down there, and they have different pricing schemes depending on how many cells you're going to get injected, how many different sites. And I'm pretty sure he did his neck primarily, and then both shoulders and both knees all in one go. And his results have been pretty amazing. He's now jumping pain-free, as many jumps as he wants. He competed at nationals with.
And this is a person you know personally. You know this guy. You see him jumping.
Yeah, I've known him for years. Yeah,
Okay.
He's a California jumper. He's super good. He's been around the sport a lot.
Yeah.
So really, really positive results with his neck. And I mean, from his mouth, he feels younger. He feels better.
That's awesome.
So I started, the backstory is I did an event in Dubai when we had a tunnel camp at the big tunnel in Abu Dhabi. It was in January. I think it was in January. Yeah.
Wow. Okay. Wow.
Maybe a little bit later, but I could look on the calendar, but it's a little bit arbitrary. But anyway, we did the tunnel thing. The drop zone heard that we were coming over and asked if we would do a big weight camp and then spend a day with some of their up and coming coaches and just do some sequentially type jumps and kind of walk them through how to engineer stuff and blah, blah, blah. So we agreed to all of it. And on the day with their up and coming coaches, we did what's called a pancake. Did I tell you this already?
Yeah, but go ahead. Please,
well, we pancaked half of the 8-way. The guy in my left hand is a big dude. I keyed it. I probably should have made it like a bigger head nod, but I made my head nod and I went and he didn't go. And so my left arm got kind of yanked behind my head.
Yeah.
I knew right as soon as it happened, I knew it was fucked up. Like I got under canopy and my left arm was just like vibrating and I could get my toggles. So I knew I wasn't too bad. But I did an MRI in March and I have a 90% tear of the supraspinatus insertion point, so the connective tissue.
Is that?
And then I had some
I don't know a lot. Is that on the back?
Yeah, I think it's on the back. It's the biggest muscle in the rotator cuff. I think there's 4 muscles, and then 2 other ones were partially torn.
Man.
So pretty good tear. And so I was considering what a lot of people call medical tourism, which is going to some other country, Mexico, Colombia,
Thailand,
India,
somewhere,
Thailand, for surgery. And that was going to be, I talked to a doctor in India. I talked to somebody in Mexico. I never got a hold of the Colombia guy. And it was going to be around $12,000 all in with them. Still, I have to travel there and I got to,
all the expenses,
flights and hotels and all that other stuff. The stem cell place was $19,600 all in. I still had to travel there, but once I got there, the hotel, transportation, everything was included after I got there, other than the MRI, which was a different business. But so that sounds like, well, I'm going to pay $7,000 more to go get stem cells, and even in my mind, it felt kind of risky. Like, are they going to work? Are they not going to work? So Steph bought a book written by a guy named Dr. Riordan, who has a clinic in Panama. And he's writing about sort of the history of stem cells. He's one of the pioneers in the industry, what they've had as far as success stories. They do clinical trials that, and all of it's outside of the US because of the difficulties with getting things through the regulatory bodies that exist in the US. And that's a whole nother conversation about if stem cells are actually going to make everyone better, because they actually work on this massive variety of issues that people have. Well, then our healthcare industry as it is doesn't want stem cells because they're going to actually make people better. And that's not the goal of our current health system. But we'll leave that one for next week.
There's too much there, man. Don't even open that. There's too much.
But I mean, reading this book, I recommended it I bought copies for 3 people. I recommended it to other people. There were a couple people that had streaming services like, I don't know, Pandora or Spotify, and you get a free couple books every year.
Yeah.
And they use that to get the book.
Audible.
Muscular dystrophy, MS, cancer, neurological disorders, diabetes, like in all of these ways that your body's not correcting itself, muscular, multiple sclerosis, an autoimmune disorder, where your body starts attacking itself, or what's it called? Crohn's disease, or
Crohn's
IBS,
is in your intestines, in your colon.
Yeah. Same kind of thing. Like it's an out of whack inflammation response that ends up destroying your own cells.
Yeah.
And the stem cells deal with that. So I didn't even the first 75% of the book is these really, really life altering diseases and maladies. Maybe they're not diseases, but issues that people have in their body. And these crazy stories about people going with multiple sclerosis, they can't walk or speak. They get wheeled into the clinic. They come out a week later, not in a wheelchair, walking under their own power and speaking.
What?
Because the stem cells have acted that quickly.
In a week?
In a week. And people are going back for multiple procedures. And so obviously, roughly $20,000, it's a little bit cost prohibitive. However, surgery, if I had chosen that route, say $12,000, that was about the average of what I got. then I'm going to come back and I'm going to be down for 6 months to a year. And that's 6 months to a year of work that I don't get. And if I miss one work contract, then the prices are the same. And if I miss two, the surgery is quite a bit more expensive. And I was going to miss, in a year, I'd miss 8 contracts. There's no way.
Yeah.
And so it's a little bit, one of the, I read the book, I started reading medical abstracts. I was, looking for the end of the internet on stem cell stuff. And I did come up with an abstract that talked about
that is a funny phrase.
Yeah. About the efficacy of surgery and why stem cells were on the rise. And the reason is that I think the baseline was a healthy 25-year-old male that was fit. The failure rate for those surgeries at that age bracket is 34%. That's where it starts. And if you go up to somebody who's in their 80s, the failure rate is 97% for repair.
You told me that. You told me that the other day. That blew my mind.
Yeah.
That's insane, dude.
So I'm somewhere in the middle of that curve, right? At 53.
It's like at least a half.
Yeah, like 50%. Chance. So I'm flipping a coin whether this procedure is going to work at all.
That's insane.
And one of the abstracts that I read was that they're experimenting with a replica, basically, of snake teeth. That like a boa constrictor has really sharp curved teeth that, as they wiggle, the teeth embed more further and further and further into whatever they're eating. And so the idea is that they would put that on either side of the wound, stitch it together, obviously, but then clamp it on both sides so that as you wiggled it, it sort of brought it closer together during the healing process. And so that's, obviously interesting, but still that's in like proof of concept phase right now. It's not even something they use, and you'd have to go to the right clinic to even get that. So yeah, I flew down to San Diego. I've been home for about a week now. I flew down to San Diego, stayed overnight in a hotel. They picked me up in what can be best described as a FBI black Escalade. And there were, I think 21 people at the hotel that night. And we kind of all stood outside and they called our names and put our luggage in the van, and took, I don't know what it was, an hour, maybe. It's maybe not even that long, 45 minutes. It was a little longer because we had to stop at the border and get kind of searched, which was very cursory, to be honest. They just kind of looked at our luggage and asked us if we had anything, and then, okay, carry on. I'm sure they're used to the company. And then we checked into a different hotel. Okay. And sorry, worms. There you go. Checked into a different hotel, and then the next morning went to a clinic, and basically they had like a room full of recliners, and they put in an IV, which they did for 3 days. I had an EKG test, and I got a bunch of through the IV, a thing called NAD+, which I'd have to read the packet to tell you exactly what it is. Myers cocktail, a ton of vitamin C, like just basically trying to prep your body for what they're going to do. And one more, there you go. And that was it. For 3 days, I just sat in the recliner, and whatever I felt like looking at on my phone, I looked at, and they gave us really, really healthy meals, which was great. And then on the 3rd or 4th day, I got injections into my left shoulder. So I got 3 spots. And then the basic package, which is all I paid for, of the price I already said, was 50 million stem cells. And 30 million went into my shoulder, which was what they said was the maximum for one site. And then the other 20 they put in through the IV to the rest of my body. And so, sorry, I back up a little bit. These stem cells are not as like there was a lot of controversy back in the day about where the stem cells were derived from. And one of the reasons why it's still difficult to get this care in the US is that lingering we're not going to take aborted fetuses and take their cells, which I think was maybe something in the 80s or early 90s when that idea first got going, and that is not what anybody does. However, they do solicit for the umbilical cord.
Mm-hmm.
If mothers go to have a birth and the umbilical cord is something they're not going to want to hang on to, then they'll take the stem cells from there, because it's apparently are very rich.
Yeah.
They get like 100 million stem cells from an umbilical cord. They'll find the stem cells that are like, study all of them, find the ones that they like, which apparently from that 100 million, they'll find about 10. And then they'll culture those into the stem cells that they put into people. So they come from not my body. And then they don't actually, the stem cells themselves don't grow the new tissue, or it's not like I have somebody else's umbilical cord cells that are going to eventually be in my body. They tell my body to regrow things, and then they eventually flush out. And a caveat being, I'm a good skydiver and I'm not a doctor. So all of this stuff is just things that I read and I'm regurgitating, and I might make mistakes. So the 3 injections that I got in my shoulder fucking hurt. Like I think I have a decent pain tolerance, and man, I was on the edge of my seat with, I was trying to keep my left arm relaxed because they were obviously digging around in there with a freaking big needle, but the rest of my body was seized up. Like it hurt. And it hurt
because
like
they were
that.
going like so deep in there, or what do you mean?
I mean,
Why did it hurt so bad?
they're doing basically like an active X-ray while it's happening, or maybe it was an ultrasound, to try and make sure that they're getting in the right spot. But it's going in between the bones of your shoulder,
Dude, so it's going way in there.
Yeah.
Oh
and
my gosh.
I, despite all the tattoos, I really don't love needles. And the idea of metal piercing my skin is
dude,
not that great. So that pain continued. It was sharp for hours. They gave me some painkillers, very basic stuff, ibuprofen basically. But no, it wasn't. They don't want anti-inflammatories because the stem cells need to circulate to where inflammation exists. And then that's like they're being called home to the inflammation. So it was tramadol, I think, muscle relaxers. Pain was much less the next day. I started being able to like raise my arm up to my shoulder again. Like right now it's gone, and I can almost the same functionality with my left as with my right. But
what was that? What were you able to do that before you went down there?
Yeah. I mean, I'm back to, it doesn't hurt at all. And I mean, even before I went, I was still able to do the workout that I do, which is body weight exercises. And I could feel my left shoulder when I was doing them. Like it didn't feel quite right, but I was still able to do it, and very little pain. But for a couple of days after I got the injections, like even moving my arm a little bit kind of hurt. And it's just kind of gone away more and more each day. So I go back in 6 months to that clinic because they were running a clinical trial, and I got in kind of under the wire. The end of October was the end of that trial. And in order to run their trial, they want to get us back to take more MRIs and see what the tissue regrowth has been, to hear about our progress, to take reports from everybody that they're treating basically. And so if I go back at 6 months and I go back a year, in order to lure me back, they're giving me 20 million more at each 6 months and 20 million at a year.
Oh, wow.
To be part of that study, which if I paid 20 grand for 50 million cells and I get 40 million cells on top of that, that seemed okay. And to be honest, like I'm hoping that that my shoulder is basically back to a 25-year-old shoulder. But the ones that went into my bloodstream, I'm really, really hopeful about. And I raced motocross for a super long time. My body's pretty banged up, and like my knees, I've had 4 knee surgeries, and I don't have a lot of cartilage left. Walking I mean, it's fine, but if I'm not a runner and I'm never going to be, well, never, I'm not sure. But anyway, those circulating stem cells are the ones that I'm real hopeful about what might happen, because I think it was the guy that started Home Depot was one of the subjects that was featured in the book. And he went down there. I can't remember exactly what he was there for, but a serious problem like muscular dystrophy or something like that. I'd have to look it up in the book again. So he got it all circulating, and it addressed that issue. His white hair started turning brown again. His vision improved. His incontinence improved. His erectile dysfunction improved. His knees improved. Like everywhere that he had some kind of problem, it addressed. And so he brought his wife down, who was again, I can't remember exactly, but just so, it's anecdotal. It's probably not every person that goes down there. I'm sure they cherry picked the stories. But then hearing from a real life person that I've known for a decade who said, "Man, my life's totally different," was kind of the sealed the deal. I called Skip on the phone. I talked to him for about an hour. He had really nothing but good things to say. I mean, the price tag is what it is, and I don't have 20 grand laying around, and it was a stretch. But your health is super important. And the only thing that I think is a bummer about the whole situation is that I had to go to Mexico to get it, because the healthcare system here is bullshit.
Well, that's a
whole nother story. So it's a week out, and it's way too early to say. The one thing that I will say is that it's very difficult to know if something is happening as a result of that, or if something is happening because it just happened, and I'm making a correlational connection that doesn't actually exist. But my neck, I have bone spurs in my neck that are digging into the spinal, like the nerves on my these two fingers on my left hand they're numb all the time. And my neck, as a younger person, I could just turn my head to the side and crack my neck like a lot of people can, and that hasn't happened for 10 or 15 years. And like I was driving the other day and just looked sideways and my neck cracked. And I mean, for that not happening in 15 years, every time, like it has happened a couple of times, but every time it's like, oh God, that felt great. In the last week, maybe a dozen or more times that it's happened, I've just moved my head and I'm like, oh, man, that was really nice. I just
cracked mine.
I just adjusted my neck a little bit.
Wow.
Well, see that little gift that keeps on
right
giving?
There.
Yep. So for sure, too early to say. But on the positive side, I'm going to go to work in about a week in Arizona and jump as normally and not skip a beat with my schedule. And we're going to train when I'm down there, and we're going to fly in the tunnel. Yeah, that's a way better.
Way better, dude. Way better than a surgery.
Provided that my shoulder heals, that's a way better approach to that situation than getting cut up.
Based on those odds, it may be better anyway, because you may not even, the failure, like you said, the failure rate is whatever it is, 50%. Well, dude, I really am interested to hear how it progresses.
I mean, maybe Skip would be a great guest anyways. He started a solar company on his own and recently sold it. Like a life-changing event for him. He's a super hardworking guy and just nice dude, good skydiver, and maybe he can share his story as well. I mean, for anybody listening, I made a decision for myself based on the information that I had, and I'm not trying to talk anybody into anything. And if they make a similar decision, I would hope that they would be as informed as they can be, and if they want a copy of the book that I read.
Well, I'm really interested, and I may, because that's something that I would definitely be open to trying. I think I told you, my friend Derek, he's a skydiver. He's a little bit older than us, but he's got shoulder issues, and he went a couple years ago and got stem cell injections in his shoulder, and he's like so much better. I mean, I was trying to teach before he got those injections. I was trying to teach him to backfly in the tunnel, and he couldn't even he couldn't backfly because he couldn't get his arm up. Like he couldn't move it.
Yeah.
And so now he's like got almost full, not full range of motion, but a lot. I mean, way more than what he had. And
well, one of the things that made a lot of sense to me when I was reading the book is that if you measure the stem cells in a human body over the course of your life, they decline, and they're very high number through about 25 or 26, and then they start to decline with everything else, testosterone and growth hormone, all the things that meant that you had a good chance at being a good athlete. That's what 22 to 25 is sort of the peak performance for most people as far as athletic abilities, and then you decline, and your stem cells decline right along with it. And interestingly, whether people know it or not, if I were to donate half of my liver because you needed a liver transplant and somehow we were compatible, my liver will grow back fully. And I didn't realize that until sometime this year. And the reason is as you age, stem cells decline everywhere except your liver. And they might decline there as well, but if anywhere in your body, they have the most. And the stem cells just tell your liver to regrow. And that happens in every body, every human body all the time. And so having learned that and saying, well, okay, I've got, a bunch of crap that's kind of wrong in my body because I've treated it pretty hard. And stem cells might make things grow again. And that is already something that works in my body, that it just made a kind of more sense than.
Yeah. I think it's super cool. I'm super happy that you got to go do it. I think that's cool. Yeah. I'm excited to hear how it
hopeful,
goes.
But I don't have enough information really to give back yet.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, all right, man. You've done it again. You wasted another perfectly good hour listening to Chris and JRuss. No guests this time. Anything else on your mind, man?
Yeah, sorry. There was one more thing. So sadly, Steph and I were not able to attend the World Meet this year through some really crappy circumstances. But the team that was able to go was Arizona Anthem. And I just wanted to give a shout out to those guys. And 4 males and a female. Seth, Irish, Chazzy, and Josh, and their camera flyer, Yanni. When we talked to them about going to the World Meet in our place about a year ago, they almost turned us down and then decided to go. And in the last year, they have put in a tremendous amount of work to improve as a team, to try to defend the title that Steph and I have been holding on to for a while. It was interestingly sad for me to give the trophy away that we've been holding on to for the last 10 years. And they had a pretty epic battle at the World Meet that just completed a few days ago, with Norway, who also heard that we were not coming and turned on the gas in their training. We've beaten them by quite a wide margin in the past, but when they heard we couldn't come, their training accelerated as well. Anthem was victorious by 1 point.
No way.
Yeah, it is the narrowest margin that's happened in VFS for at least the last 10 years.
Wow. 1 point.
14 years. It may be in the history of VFS, it's the closest meet that's happened.
Wow.
So I'm super stoked for those guys.
That's Team Anthem, you said?
Yeah, Arizona Anthem.
Okay.
So
that's
congratulations to those guys.
Yeah, congratulations. Very cool.
Yeah, so that one's close to my heart. The 8-way team, the US 8-way team, they also won gold. I believe they set a world record for the highest average ever as an 8-way team, and they set a world record for the most points in one round. So that was good meet for them.
What was it?
I'd have to look at the scores. It's up in the 30s, I think.
Okay.
Which let me see if I still have this active.
Do you know about XP Ascend? How'd they do?
They finished second.
Oh man,
to a very close meet.
man, I really wanted them to win.
Yeah, it was close. The French team that won, they clearly had a little bit different ideas as far as style. Like the French guys they brought back some moves that were kind of popular around 2010, 2012, like a little bit more the competitors touching each other more in free fall, as opposed to just like, not just, but Jason and James's routine, the Ascend guys and Jake, theirs were beautiful, skillful, amazing, but mostly just in sync with each other, with all of their moves, and not a lot of physical contact. And the French guys just had a different style, and it was a few tenths of a single point that separated those two teams. The women's four-way team came out on top. I think China finished second, which was absolutely remarkable. Like, they were so good and like out of nowhere. And the men's team airspeed also, so US swept formation skydiving, which was super cool to see. And then I think Nick Daniels from the US won in speed. And I don't know how that there's a team category there. Our teammate Colin, I think he finished 14th, which was third. I think Mike, as far as the US standings, I think Michael Brewer was not second place, but in the US people, he was the second highest finisher. And then Colin Conway got third, third of the US people. So yeah, really good world meet.
That's
in
cool.
my opinion, for US skydiving.
Well, I'm hoping that we can have the Ascend guys on the show, maybe, because I talked to.
Right. Yeah.
I think it was James that I talked to at Houston last weekend or a couple weekends ago. So maybe we can have them on. That'd be fun to talk to them and hear about it a little bit.
One at a time.
One at a time.
Yeah, one at a time. Otherwise, we're not going to hear from James.
Well, cool.
But that was that's my last bit, and
excellent.
Yeah, we'll look forward to hopefully my team can get back on track for attending the next one. We'll see.
Yeah. So do you want to get into why y'all didn't go, or is that not something we want to mess with right now? I really don't. I don't think I know. I don't think you've told me, or if you have, I forgot. So, but we can get into it later. Yeah,
that's a decently long conversation in order to be fair to the participants, and I'll think about that one.
Yeah, cool. Yeah. All right. Well, JRuss, thanks, man. It's
thanks, Chris.
Nice to connect and chat.
Thanks for this. She's going to be our de facto guest.
Yeah, I love it.
Hopefully all future shows.
I kind of like hearing her throughout the show. It's a nice little, it's like ambiance. So
next week's show, I sincerely hope we ordered, there's a Starlink roaming thing now.
I don't know. I know what Starlink is, but I don't know what you mean roaming.
So Starlink, there's a lot of people who, like we converted a bus. There's a lot of people who RV and they don't have reliable internet. Starlink made if you have a Starlink at your home, you can order a second dish and get a roaming package that is a little bit cheaper by the month, but you basically, it doesn't have to be linked to your address, which our service here we can't just move it over to our neighbors. They won't let it work. But this one you can move around. And so we got that for the bus, and we're headed down to Arizona in a few days. And I sincerely hope that will be our first podcast from
we can test it out.
Well, we drove it down there. I had to order new inverters because the ones that I got didn't work. And I cracked a panel on the drive down. I think I probably told that story. So we're taking the 5 more panels that we have, making a little ground mount, and making sure that we've got enough power to run both of the ACs to keep us alive. It's pretty hot down there. We intend to leave in a couple of days, to have a few days before the next contract starts to get to work on all that. So cool. The bird will be with us, and hopefully broadcasting from the bus.
Yeah. We'll okay, cool. That'll be awesome.
Yeah.
I don't think I've gotten to see really the bus since you sent me some pictures, but it's been when you first started like redoing it. So I haven't seen what it looks like now that it's pretty much all
Yeah.
finished.
Well, if we do that cast from, I mean, if I don't get the AC working, then I'm going to be up at my teammate's house because we're parked on like the lower lot of his property right now.
Okay.
If it's working, for sure, I'll walk you around and take the camera around. But if it's not working, then I'll just have to take some pictures or something.
Okay. Yeah, no problem. All right.
Cool.
Well, thanks, man. Everybody, thanks for joining us this week on another episode of the Krāv Show. Get out there and have some fun, man. Jump out of an airplane, have a good time, be safe, enjoy the sky. Krāv, do more, be better. Thanks, JRuss.
Yep. Thanks, everybody.
Bye.
See ya.